Yeah, thank you for the invitation. It was just a short while ago that Klaria was here in the context of opiate overdose and opiate addiction, particularly in the United States. I'll talk some about that. I wanted to also take this opportunity to present a few of the new ideas that Klaria is pursuing as well. Klaria, we're focused on pain, and particularly on pain patients that are experiencing either severe pain or pain that's physically debilitating. And we're trying to do two things. One is to give them a very rapid-acting therapeutic intervention. And the second is not to burden them with their therapy. And that's important, particularly for pain patients. Oops. So, particularly for severe pain, there are therapies, of course. We'll talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of current therapies. And as I mentioned, our focus is to use the technology that we have to improve the patient's life, to allow them to do something that they can't currently do, to enable a patient to administer their medication themselves, to be more independent, and most importantly, to have a lower level of anxiety, no matter what the source of their pain is, about their therapeutic intervention. So most of Klaria is actually focused on simplifying the drug discovery process. And a little bit of my background, I come from big pharma, where failure is kind of the normal state of affairs. In fact, I'm unfortunately the first author on the first chapter of not yet best-selling book on why drugs fail. And so you can buy the book. I would encourage you to buy the book, but as all authors do. But the take-home message from this chapter in particular is keep it simple and make sure the patient gets an advantage out of the therapeutic intervention. Okay? So now you don't have to read the chapter. I'd mentioned my backgrounds from Pfizer and AstraZeneca, and we have seen all possible ways that drug projects can fail. And we list out some of the gruesome reasons here. So it's one of the reasons why I decided actually to join with Frederick Hubinet to establish Klaria. Frederick is the inventor of the polymer-based technology that we use to reformulate existing therapies. All of the drug substances we use are not only approved, but so far all of the drugs we use are generics, so we don't run into any patent issues. Frederick worked for a very long time to find just the perfect combination of polymers that actually stick to the inside of the mouth, don't induce side effects, and actually can contain a drug molecule and deliver it properly over the oral mucosa. And that's a very, very unique combination. In big companies like Astra and Pfizer, we have the opportunity to look at all possible drug delivery techniques, right? This one is unique. And we actually started the process of building up Klaria while I was still at AstraZeneca. We took in the technology, looked at it, and then we decided to spin out the company as Klaria. 2015, we took in the first round, first clinical trial we ran almost immediately after establishing the company in 2016. And as you can see, our first out-licensing deal with Purdue Pharma happened just last year. So we built up the company, we've proven the technology, and we've also proven that we can develop things and we can sell them. The first out-licensing deal, as I'd mentioned, to Purdue Pharma. I'll come into this a little bit later. I just wanted to mention this because I think it's a huge step for a small company like Klaria, and it's rather unique for a 2 or 3 year old company to be able to partner with a very large pharma company on such an exciting product as well that reaches so many patients. So why is this so interesting? And why would a big company who, like Astra and Pfizer, they can look at anything from a drug delivery standpoint. Why did they choose us, or a small company in Uppsala? Well, the reason is that what we have not only is unique and patented, but it actually works. The polymer itself comes from the kelp plant, and not just the general plant, but it comes from the stem part of the plant. And those polymers actually have very unique features. And if you think about the inside of your mouth, not very many things actually stick there. Peanut butter, maybe, sometimes, but otherwise your mouth is built so that things do not stick. This plant is built so that it sticks and it stays where it's supposed to, underwater. And that's what makes these natural polymers so unique. As I mentioned, we have the base technology patent. Fredrik did a very good job in protecting what he learned about this particular type of polymer. And then within Klaria, and I'll emphasize it a bit later, each specific project we pursue, we build up a patent portfolio around that project, not only to extend the patent life, but to guarantee our freedom to operate in this area. The process that's actually patented is to take the polymers from the plant and formulate something that looks like a very small postage stamp. And you can think of it as a normal therapeutic patch, a dermal patch. But it's unique in that it sticks in the inside of your mouth, leaves no residue, dissolves completely. And we can control, with the mixture of polymers, we can control how long it takes to dissolve. But during the entire dissolution process, it's transferring the drug substance across your oral membrane into the bloodstream. And any of you men who have nicked yourself shaving, you know how well the blood supply in your face actually works. There's a very healthy blood supply around your mouth. So getting the drug into your blood supply through the mouth is quite easy, as long as the dose stays there. The last thing I'll mention here is that there are a lot of rapidly dissolving films on the market, some for breath, some for other drugs. This is not that. Those are orally dissolving films. You swallow the dose. This actually sticks. And it sticks to the inside of the mouth, basically transfers the drug across to the bloodstream. The advantages for the patient. First and foremost, for severe pain patients or any acute situation, the effect is extremely rapid. The second, particularly important for patients who are lying, cancer patients who can't sit up, a migraine patient who's lying down, the administration is extremely simple. And last, and I'll come back to this actually in the context of migraine patients are notorious for non-compliance. And if you read our little chapter there, you'll see that actually non-compliance, not taking your medications, is one of the biggest reasons for therapeutic failure. It's hard to get a drug to work if the patient doesn't take it. And the second tier of that is it's hard to get a drug to work, particularly for migraine patients, if the patient doesn't take it on time. Because migraine is a progressive attack. If you take it early, and if the medication has a rapid effect, the outcome is much, much better. If you take it after an hour or 2 hours, it's almost no point in actually taking your medication at all. It's too late. We want to both be able to provide this rapid effect, but also, this is the size of a postage stamp. You have it in your wallet all the time. You don't have to carry tablets. You don't have to carry a big nasal spray. You can have it in your mobile case, anywhere. And we'll come back to that actually in the context of opioid overdose as well. So here are all the ways that you can get a drug into the body. You can inject it. You can spray it up your nose. You can breathe it in. You can try to get it to pass across your skin. Or you can swallow it. Well, here's another way. You can actually get it to absorb directly across your oral mucosa. The advantage here is that all of the defense mechanisms that we've built up over thousands and thousands of years to protect our bodies from things we eat, they actually break down a lot of the medications we take. So if you take an oral medication, a lot of it actually doesn't even get to your body because it's broken down in your intestines and in your liver. This actually goes past this mechanism. There aren't those defense mechanisms in your mouth. Easier, cheaper, simpler than inhaling. Much, much faster than taking a transdermal patch. About the same rate of onset, maybe a little faster than nasal sprays. But nasal sprays, I mean, squirting things up your nose, for some patients it's okay. For most patients, they don't like it. And I'm one of the people who doesn't like needles. So this actually does what these do, but basically paste this little thing in your mouth and you're finished. You're done. The other advantage of this technology is that it's, I'm not going to say dirt cheap, but it's very, very inexpensive to produce. Standard coating equipment that's used in the plastics and paper industry. This equipment is extremely standard for making paper and plastics. This is how we produce large-scale amounts of the doses. And last, the advantage of Klaria really is that, as I'd mentioned, we take generic substances and we enable those generic substances to do things for the patient that the patient doesn't have available to them now. Makes their life better. So we do a lot of formulation testing in Uppsala. We run the clinical trials to find the right dose. And then we run registration studies. And the registration studies for generics are relatively simple. So our development times are less than half of that of a traditional drug development timeline. And best of all, we know the regulatory environment. We know what it costs to produce. We know what it costs to run the trials. So as I'd mentioned, we're focused on pain. This is one of the best application areas of this technology. Rapid onset, probably the lowest possible burden on the patient. So we focused on the most difficult pain patients, but also on those markets where we think we can make the largest impact. First is on migraine. Second is in breakthrough cancer pain. And actually, now as I'll come to, we've moved into opioid overdose. And the overdose area actually has grown out of our work in the cancer pain portfolio. This project was part of this. We didn't actually include this number in this calculation. This is pain treatment. But the recent events in the US and over the world with overdose of opiates, they're now developing a fairly substantial market in and of themselves. So let's just talk about why this is $1 billion a year. These numbers are a little bit frightening. 65,000 plus in 2017 as an estimate, fatal overdoses of fentanyls, oxycodones, morphines in the US alone. The reason for this number is this number. And this isn't a typo. 650,000 prescriptions written for opioid-containing drugs every day in the US. It's little wonder that they are experiencing a dependence problem with a number of prescriptions being written. Prescription medications are only part of the problem, though, because once you become addicted to opiates, sooner or later your prescription ends. And a lot of the overdose cases that we see in the US are actually a function of prescription ending, dependence stays, and the patient actually goes out on the streets and buys whatever they can get their hands on. They get a hold of something that's too strong, or they don't know what exactly it is, and they've overdosed. Overdose is fatal, and basically the overdose of opiates occurs, and the fatalities result primarily from depression of the breathing center. So you essentially stop breathing. Naloxone is an antidote, and I was trained as a toxicologist, so I never thought that I would actually work on an antidote in my life, but here I am. Naloxone basically competes away the opiate from the brain receptors. Has to get in there quickly, because in a lot of cases the patient is not breathing or breathing extremely slowly. The existing products that contain naloxone as an antidote for opiate overdose are nasal sprays and injectables. Naloxone as a substance, it's not absorbed through the stomach, and absorption occurs anyway too slow. So it has to come in fast, and it has to come in through some other route. So you either have to inject it or you have to spray it in the nose. These products have very high prices. And one of the disadvantages is that they're solutions, right? They're water-based solutions. Part of Klaria's market for naloxone is actually emergency use for ambulances, police cars, school buses, unfortunately, tow trucks, everywhere. Where do vehicles sit? They sit outside. So as soon as you leave your naloxone dose in your vehicle, it's frozen, and your nasal spray doesn't work. The film works. It doesn't change characteristics when it's frozen. It's the same. The other large part of the market for our naloxone product is actually co-prescription. When you get an opiate-based prescription for your pain, you should be co-prescribed the antidote in case of overdose. So these are the two large markets. So as I said, we've out-licensed this project, 514, which is our version of naloxone formulated in our film. The way the agreement works is that essentially we've reached the license agreement with Canada. Canada then licenses further to Purdue, US, and Mundipharma, its sister companies. This is important to point out because this agreement actually gives us access to every patient in the world. these three companies actually access the entire world market. So through them, we have access to everybody. This is an investor presentation, so you're interested in where the money comes from. Well, the money comes to us from all three, right? And the agreement itself is co-development with Purdue, with them paying us to develop it, co-develop it with them. And then what looks like a normal drug license agreement, milestone payments, and a % of sales as royalties. The interesting part of this is also in this agreement that we have the right to produce and supply the world market. So we produce it and sell it back to Purdue, hopefully to a decent margin. So that's really the structure of most of the license agreements we anticipate reaching with big pharmaceutical companies. Something that looks more or less like that. And particularly exciting are the supply agreements. It's rather boring for a drug presentation to talk about production and supply, but I think that part actually is part of what will make us successful. So I just want to end with a little bit of a presentation and apologize for the English-speaking parts of the audience, but we've actually started the development of the film to contain cannabinoids. And I will give you just a short review of why we've done this. Within cancer pain, particularly, Klaria, we're developing products for these patients, as I've mentioned. A film containing fentanyl, very effective for cancer patients. A lot of cancer patients and a lot of pain patients, however, don't and probably shouldn't be using opiates to treat their pain. And part of the 650,000 prescriptions per day are not these people, they're these people. The patients and the physicians. Patients are desperate, they'll try anything to relieve their pain, and so this use of opiates is actually moved into these pain patients and created the overdose problem that we see today. NSAIDs, Ipren, paracetamol, diclofenac, those types of compounds, they're okay, but they only really reach a certain level of pain. If you have moderate pain, back pain, pain from dental surgeries, things like that, neurological pain that really shouldn't be treated with this, you're faced with a lot of white space here. And this is the market where cannabinoids actually work. It's just came out a few weeks ago, but about half of the oncologists in the US said that if they knew what to prescribe to their patients, they would prescribe cannabinoid-containing medications for those patients who maybe need this occasionally, but have a pain that probably lands here somewhere. It's a gigantic market. You can put any kind of number you want here. There are a lot of patients, and this arrow is going to be moving back here in the future with the more and more restricted use of opiates. And these patients have nothing. That's why we've entered into this area. So I just want to summarize then, Klaria. It's a great technology, extremely unique. Production costs, convenience, it couldn't be really more convenient for a patient, and particularly a severely compromised patient. We focused on those areas that have very large markets and or very large growth potential. And our track record now, we know what we're doing. We can run the development programs, we can sell products, and we can make our programs attractive for license, out licensing. So I'll end there and take some questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Great presentation. I love the way that you left us with sort of a teaser, cliffhanger there about the cannabinoids, the program that you have announced that you're going into. But first I'd like to ask you, you were here in January, I think. What's the most important thing that happened in Klaria since then until now?
Well, aside from the development of the cannabinoids strategy, I think we've progressed the 514 program very well. Hope to make some announcements of that soon. Also, our migraine portfolio has moved quite well as well. So in the past 4 months, a lot of progress.
Yeah, that's great. And as far as the bomb that you dropped, basically becoming the first Sweden-based company to work with a cannabinoid drug. What kind of reactions have you gotten from that?
Surprisingly, only positive. We're a drug company, and our intention is to develop prescription drugs using substances that we know work, and to enable something that the patients actually don't have. And if you look at cannabinoids in general, and I'm from Colorado, where marijuana is legal, it's a jungle. Physicians don't know what to do, patients don't know what to do, and really the only way to enter this is with a patented drug delivery system so that you can keep your intellectual property rights and have a reasonable business case to build around what is otherwise publicly known drugs.
Yeah. And so what's the competitive landscape like within these specific niche if you look internationally?
Yeah, internationally, the competitive landscape, and we mentioned it in the press release, but there are oral sprays and there are oral drops available as prescription medications at the moment. Then on the non-prescription medical cannabis world, there are all available methods, but they're unregulated. You don't know the ingredients. They haven't been tested. As I said, a jungle. And this is an opportunity to give pain patients something well-defined, physicians something well-defined that they can actually prescribe and help their patients actually, and enable the patients to help themselves.
Yeah. And you described this gap between the ordinary stuff, the paracetamol, the Alvedon and things like that, and then the opioids, which will be probably more restricted in the future. And how big is this gap in terms of market figures, would you say?
The total pain management market, including NSAIDs and opiates, I mean, it's about $50 billion. The total cannabis market worldwide is estimated to between 25 billion and 30 billion per year. Some combination of those. I mean, it's a very, very large chunk.
Exciting. I would like to ask the audience, anyone has a question for Scott? Yes?
I'm a little bit ignorant to what has happened with the Purdue agreement. Has there been any sales, any cash flow from that?
Well, we took in the first milestone payment last year when we signed the agreement, and we anticipate taking in the second in 2018. So, progress in the lab. Patents are going in as we've communicated. Yeah, more I can't say until we and they agree that the next steps should be taken.
Okay. We have run out of time. Scott will be here to answer questions in the lounge area as well. And thank you very much for coming, Scott.
Okay, thank you, Jonas.